Welcome to the laboratory for the psychophysiological analysis of cognition, emotion, and reward. In this video, we'll walk you through preparing the lab, connecting participants, running experiments, and cleaning the lab. To open the lab, use the key in the lockbox next to the door. Remember to return the key to the box after you've done so. Before our participant arrives, we need to prepare the intercom, the battery, the tubes of gel, and the eye electrodes. Ensure that the communication devices inside and outside the booth are switched on. Unplug the battery from the charging cable. Make sure to only ever hold the plastic and never the cord. Take the battery inside the booth. Place it underneath the amplifier module and connect the power cord from the amplifier module to the battery, again making sure to only touch the plastic part of the connector. Ensure the notch on the connector aligns with the one on the receptacle. Containers of fresh gel are stored in the cabinet next to the door. Bring such a container to the table, where you can open the lid by unscrewing it. Take an empty syringe. Remove the red cap. Making sure the plunger is first depressed, place the nose in the gel container. Then pull back the plunger, pulling gel into the tube. Clean any excess gel off the side of the tube with a tissue. Keep the gel fresh by placing a red cap back on the tube. Retrieve the eye electrodes from the hook on the wall and drape them around your neck. Take a page of electrode collar stickers from the bowl and attach them to the electrodes. Make sure the tab on the collar is in line with the wire on the electrode. Stick these electrodes to the table. Remove the red cap from one of the gel tubes and replace it with an applicator tip. Use the syringe to add a small amount of gel to each of the electrodes. Be very careful to keep the applicator tip from coming in contact with the electrode surface. Make sure each electrode is filled with gel, but not to excess. When a participant arrives in the PACER lab, make sure to be welcoming and friendly. You're their ambassadors to science. Have them come in and take a seat in the booth. Using the wall switch, turn on the participant light. On the computer, open Google Chrome and navigate to the participant log of the study in which the participant is enrolled. On the appropriate line, enter in all information about this participant. Make sure to note the participant's number, because you'll need to use it to name files later on. The conventions for naming files differ according to the study you're running. They can be found on the bulletin board above the computer. It's now time to fit the participant with a cap. Take the tape measure from the bowl. Place the tape measure in the exact middle of the front of the head and wrap it all the way around. Make sure the tape measure goes over the widest part of the back of the head. Mark where the tape measure meets itself again. Note the circumference of the head on the tape measure. Retrieve the cap corresponding to the measured size from the rack of caps. At this point, ask the participant to remove any glasses they're wearing. Take the cap you've selected and with another person holding the cap's front, stretch it over the participant's head. Make sure the participant's ears go through the ear holes in the cap and then Velcro the straps at the bottom. Always make sure the cap is entirely centered on the participant's head. If the cap is too large, you will find loose areas all over the head that are very easy to stretch. If the cap is too small, you will find that it does not entirely cover the participant's head. Make sure the tag in back is outside the cap. Once you know the cap fits, take it off. We'll prepare it by inserting the electrodes. Take the electrodes off the wall and drape them around your neck. Retrieve the foam mannequin head from next to the computer and sit down in one of the chairs. Hold the mannequin head between your knees to ensure stability. Put the cap on the foam head, but keep in mind it won't fit perfectly. Take an electrode and insert it into the proper spot on the cap. The number on the electrode cable should match the number on the electrode collar. Insert the electrode into the plastic collar as straight as you can. Make sure the metal tip of the electrode does not brush the sides of the collar. Make sure to use enough pressure that the electrode is fully secured into the collar and there's no gap between the collar and the electrode. The ground electrode is separate from all the other collars in the bundle and is placed in the black collar on the forehead. Once all 33 electrodes are in the collars, straighten out the wires to make sure they aren't tangled. Before securing the eye electrodes, we'll clean around the participant's eye using the alcohol prep pad in the box on the table. Gently wipe above, beside, and below the participant's left eye. Make sure to let the participant know what you're doing whenever you're in their personal space. They should always know what's going on. Peel back the paper on the eye electrode collars and have the participant look at the top center of the screen to center their eye. Use the reference sheet on the back wall of the booth to remind you which electrode goes where. Place electrodes directly above, directly to the side, and directly below the participant's pupil. Apply pressure to each electrode to secure it to the participant's skin, again making sure it's aligned with their pupil. Bend down in front of the participant's face to ensure alignment. Make sure the slot on the connector for the eye electrodes aligns with the slot in the amplifier port labeled AUX1. Make sure the connector is secure in that port. With the eye electrodes connected, we place the cap back on the participant. Make sure it's aligned to the center and secure it with the Velcro straps below the chin. The cap should be snug, but not tight. Check with the participant and then clip the splitter box onto their clothing. Insert the connector for the ground electrode into the appropriate port on the amplifier. Again, make sure the slots align. The electrode cable connector has an arrow on it. Align this arrow with the arrow on the receptacle and plug the cable into the amplifier. Open the window and turn on the monitor so we can show the participant the recordings which we are seeing. Open PiCorder using the PiCorder-battery icon on the desktop. Accept the license agreement and click on Default Mode. Adjust the display settings to show the data from the eye electrodes. These settings are on a sign next to the computer. Ask the participant to blink so all can see that it is working. In order to connect the other electrodes, we go to Impedance Mode in the software and wait for it to display 33 red boxes. Explain to the participant that the applicator is not sharp. Starting with the ground electrode, insert the applicator and swirl a bit to make sure the hair is out of the way. Then, press the plunger while pulling the applicator out of the electrode to fill it with gel. Hold the electrode still and swirl the gel around. You should not have to apply any pressure to the participant's skin. Each RA should do this on all the electrodes on each side of the cap. An electrode is fully connected once the lead on it has turned green. The electrodes along the midline of the head and at the mastoids are the most critical. The display on the computer will show you which electrodes still need to be connected. You should be able to connect them all in around 15 minutes. If the participant has glasses, help them put them back on at this point. Before we begin the experiment, show the participant what the EEG data we record looks like. Ask them to blink and grind their teeth and show them what this data looks like. The muscle activity from this will cause noise in the data. Open the presentation file on the computer in the booth that corresponds to the study and task which you would like to run. Click the Run button to start the task. On the recording computer, click the Start Recording button. Enter the file name that corresponds to the naming convention on the sheets above the computer. Before you click Save, explain the task to the participant. Once you've explained the task, turn off the room lights, close the door to the booth, and turn off the booth lights. Click Save on the recording computer to start recording. While the data are being recorded, stay alert and monitor it for any problems. If you see any issues, record them in the subject log, and if possible, try to intervene. Good data will generally look something like this. This data is excellent, except for one dead electrode. The electrode shown here is disconnected from the participant's scalp. While this data is very noisy, either from a bad ground connection or from muscle activity. If any of these problems persist, contact the person supervising your shift. After a participant has completed a task, use the Open dialog in Presentation to open the next task. Once all tasks have been completed, we must disconnect the participant from the EEG. Unclip the electrode splitter from their clothing and undo the strap that secures the cap. Glasses should again be removed. Lift the cap straight off their head. Disconnect all of the wires from the amplifier. Always pull from the plastic connector, never the wire. Place the cap and the electrodes on the towel. Use a tissue to make sure the connectors are safe from gel. Peel the eye electrodes off the participant's skin by using the little blue tabs. Then, carefully disconnect the eye electrodes from the amplifier. Ask the participant to exit the booth and bring them to the sink area. Show them the shampoo and other hair care products we stock and invite them to wash their hair to remove gel. Provide the participant with a towel, which are found underneath the sink in the box labeled Participant Towels. The participant is now done in the EEG room. Turn off the participant light. Find the removal tool in the bowl on the table. Only use this tool to remove electrodes. The tool has two prongs. These prongs slide between the electrode and the plastic collar on the cap. Insert the tool and then pull it up to remove the electrode from the cap. Make sure the tool goes straight in and not at any kind of angle. Once the electrodes have been removed, take the cap and place it in a bowl of lukewarm water to loosen remaining gel. Before cleaning the eye electrodes, remove the stickers by holding on to the white part of the eye electrode and pulling on the blue tab. Always use filtered water when cleaning any kind of electrode. Turn on the water and run the electrodes underneath the stream until the gel is gone. After somebody else has made sure the electrodes are clean, hang them back on the hook. When cleaning the main electrodes, remove one bundle at a time to keep them organized. Place these electrodes underneath the water and make sure to remove all gel. Gel will accumulate in the trench on the electrode, as well as on the face next to the silver tip, and on the back with the electronics. Make sure all of these areas have zero gel before you move on to the next electrode. Again, pay special attention to the front face, the back face, and the middle channel on the electrode. After one bundle of electrodes is completely clean, move on to the next bundle. Proceed like this through all 32 normal electrodes. Keep cleaned electrodes in the opposite hand from dirty electrodes, making sure that no electrode ever hits the sink's surface. Don't forget to also clean the ground electrode, which is separate from the main bundle. Once you've cleaned the electrodes, have somebody else check them to make sure they're as clean as possible. Blow on the electrodes to remove any excess water. If any water does not blow away, it's probably gel. Once somebody has verified that the electrodes are clean, hang them on the wall. The connector should always be above the electrodes. Make sure the electrodes do not hit the wall when you're hanging them up. This can break off the tips, shortening their lives. To keep the electrode ribbon cable out of the way, insert it into the clip on the back of the splitter box. Retrieve a checklist from next to the door. When a task has been completed, the RA should put their initials in the box and ask the person who verified it to put their initials in the other box. The cap is cleaned using unfiltered water. Run the water through each hole on the electrode cap, making sure to do so from both the inside and the outside of the cap. Do this for every hole in the cap that had an electrode in it. Once another RA has verified that all the holes in the cap are clean, place the cap in the disinfectant for around 2 minutes. Make sure the cap is fully submerged in the disinfectant. Use the tongs to make sure your hands come in minimal contact with the disinfectant. Make sure to secure the lid very firmly so no fumes escape. After 2 minutes, use the tongs to take the cap out of the disinfectant and place it in a bowl under running water. Make sure to remove all disinfectant from the cap by rinsing it several times. The cap is clean when you no longer see tiny bubbles during rinsing. Once the cap has been rinsed, spread it out on the towel to allow it to dry. Once again, make sure the checklist is complete. Remove the tips from the syringes and return any leftover gel to the container. Clean the syringes by flushing them several times with water. You should also flush the applicator tips by attaching them to a syringe and intaking and expelling water. Place the tips in disinfectant for around 2 minutes, then remove them and flush them again. Go into the booth and rename the behavioral output files. Make sure to use the same names you used for the EEG recordings earlier. You also should copy the saved EEG files from the recording computer to the appropriate location on the Psych_PACER Lab shared drive. This will allow us to analyze the data later on, which is a key part of an RA's responsibilities. Unplug and remove the battery from its shelf inside the booth. Plug it back into its charger, carefully aligning the connector. Finally, make sure any dishes and mugs are clean and leave them on the towel to dry. Make sure that the lab is tidy and that all lights are off before closing the door. Remember to scramble the combination to the lockbox. Thanks for watching. In this video, we've learned how to prepare the lab, connect participants, run experiments, and clean the lab. We're excited that you've decided to join the PACER Lab team.